Good evening, everybody. It's a privilege being a part of this CEO Conclave, which is quite unique in itself, as Monica rightly told. And I welcome all these esteemed guests on this panel to have a discussion on the topic you have been given. The topic that we have been told to discuss on is it's no longer tomorrow, it's today. Now, what we mean by that? In last 2 years, we all will agree that it has been the most difficult time that we have ever come across. The COVID-19 pandemic has not only impacted our lives, but it has impacted all sectors that you can think of, and the business sector is no exception to that. But having said that, this pandemic has taught us how the new normal, the so-called new normal is, and it has redefined the very fundamentals of doing business. It's no longer only thinking about the global strategy or the long-term strategy. It's also very much now clear that we have to think about the local strategy and think and plan about the challenges and the strategies of today. That is what the pandemic has taught us. And to know more about this, that is what led to this topic. It's no longer tomorrow, it's about today. And to know more about this, we'll speak to our various panelists who will basically share us their experience, not only personal, but the business experience they had to go through during such difficult times and how they have been able to evolve from there and what strategies they are taking up to meet such situations. Let me begin by asking Mr. Keshavji, who is the director of Mahanadi Coalfield Limited. We all know that pandemic has affected every sector, and coal sector is no exception to that. So just take us through how bad it has hit your sector and what have you done to evolve from that and the strategies that you have formed to overcome those challenges.
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to everybody. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be on this panel and talk about the various problems that the industry has been facing during the last 2 years of pandemic. So to begin with, I'm happy to tell you that coal industry, specifically Mahanadi Coalfields Limited in Odisha, with the cooperation of the state government, with the cooperation of all the other stakeholders, has not been affected by the pandemic. So that is one positive development I can vouch for. So this is a strange situation, but the kind of preparedness that we ensured, we had among one of the highest ever stock of coal last year, and that has been a huge help in mitigating the crisis. Since coal crisis is not the topic of discussion today, I'll not spend time elaborating on that, but certainly I would like to say with the cooperation of the state government and other stakeholders, we have succeeded in tiding over this crisis, and we have had good results throughout, and whatever stocks we could build up during this time have actually been used up to a good extent during this crisis. So that's been fortunately our success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so just you can pass on to Pramodji. Pramodji, it's, as we hear that MCL has not been that badly hit, but what about RSP? Are you equally fortunate that you have not been unlikely impacted by the pandemic so much as been perceived?
समस्तों को नमस्कार. माननीय Samiranjan Patnaik ji, Madam Monica Nair Patnaik, ladies and gentlemen present over here, and my fellow panelists. So Raurkela Steel Plant is one of the 5 integrated steel plant of Steel Authority of India Limited, and our other 4 units are in the state of Chhattisgarh, Bhilai Steel Plant, in West Bengal, Durgapur Steel Plant and ISCO Steel Plant, and in Jharkhand, Bokaro Steel Plant. Yes. Pandemic, the first wave, it caught everybody in surprise, and so also the Raurkela Steel Plant. everybody were panic. Our products could not be marketed, so we had to cut down the production. As my directors have told, similar as for mining, steel industry is also a public utility industry and it cannot be stopped. It has to run, and it is thermosensitive unit or blast furnace, steel melting shop, coke oven, it can never be stopped. If it stops once, it has to stop permanently. So the temperature has to be maintained. But with everybody getting panicked, we also did not have a plan immediately in place how to control, how to manage our own people and our own township. We have our own captive township, Rourkela Steel City, and the plant. In between there is Durgapur Hills. Most of you must have seen it. So, and there was no testing facility in the entire Western Odisha for RT-PCR test. So Rourkela Steel Plant was the first unit to establish 600 capacity RT-PCR test facility, 600 per day, with the help of the state government. Then we hired people from the society in addition to our Ispat General Hospital for conducting the test. Then we created we had got different hostels, management training hostels. Those were converted to quarantine centers, isolation centers. So we build up our capacity to manage the people, our own township, our own employees, their family members. And our business was cut down to 50% in the Q1 and Q2 of 2021.
I would like to take this forward to Mr. Suresha ji, who is the Executive Director of ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel. As MCL and RSP are projecting some good news during the pandemic, but I'm sure bringing up a new project in Odisha, things wouldn't have been so easy for ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel, because you had just entered into Odisha with a new project and this pandemic started. So how difficult was it?
Good evening. First of all, I would like to compliment Sambad Group for organizing such a wonderful event and give us an opportunity to come here and speak. So it is the way the coal field and the steel plant at Rourkela, they explained. Even for ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India, it is a new challenge. We could see both ups and downs during the pandemic, but we could find a lot of opportunities. If you talk about opportunities, what we had and how we changed this, the situations where we could take benefit of this, I would like to explain few things. In terms of hospital setup, when we had oxygen shortage and people started brainstorming, and there was a request from our group chairman that we should set up this hospital oxygen for people. So we had an innovative idea to set up a hospital next to the plant so that gas directly, the oxygen will be supplied to the people. And within 3 days, we could set up 200-bedded hospital where it could be extended to 1,000 people. That is a new idea we implemented. So the near to steel plant, setting up an oxygen supplying hospital, it's one of its kind in the world. So that was the opportunity that we learned. Our people did it. At the same time, see, in steel, when we started here, the project, as you said, the pandemic hit us a big way. So we took this opportunity to have a proper planning. The planning, government machinery was definitely supporting us, and we could do a proper planning, especially. So we had problems in our supply chain management. We had problems in raw material supply to our steel plants. Also technical skill, because the people started moving to their states. The workforce, especially on project sites, we got affected. So the way Hemant Sharma ji told, we started focusing on skill development, our local people. So this has helped us now a lot. Now people we have near to our plants who can do our work, and we also started mobilizing the required skill set which is required for building our assets, especially wherever we have steel plants.
Okay, we'll take this further to Mr. Swarup Mahanti, who is the CEO of Mira Assets. Mr. Swarup, I'd like to get some honest answer from you. As we have been hearing from these three esteemed guests, the picture seems to be almost normal. Life was almost as normal for them. But as we know, the business is not normal anymore. It's the new normal now. So we want an honest answer from you. How bad the situation is, how bad the market is, and what is the road ahead to meet such challenges.
First of all, thank you for having me, Soumyabu. Ms. Patnaik, it's an absolute honor to be sharing the dais with my fellow panelists here. A very honest confession is, when this whole thing started, and look at the situation, if somebody would have told you, here's a virus, and it's ruling the world, first time, world, we're not talking about a country.
Absolutely.
And people across the world are sitting in their houses scared for their lives. It's like a science fiction movie. It's not reality. And that's what happened. And when it happened, ours is not a business of producing anything. Our business is of that of money. And we would stand up on stages and ask people, what is more important to you, your health or your money? Everybody would have wanted to say money, but they're forced to say health, right? But that is where we stand. Okay, we deal with money, and money is not easy. If you compare this pandemic to, say, demonetization, there was no problem of health with demonetization, but there was huge issue with the country because money was not available. So the first thing that we had to do, because we take money from people, was to ensure that at any point of time, and it was definitely a time when people needed money for whatever reasons, was to give back the money. And here's the thing, we were not allowed to do it physically. When we take money from people, it's a very physical thing, it's a business of trust. Somebody talks to us, gains that trust and gives us money. So we've been selling this product for, say, I've been doing this for 25, 27 years. And even today, if I tell this crowd that I work with a mutual fund, very few people will know what I'm doing. So we used to always wonder कि अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, समझते हैं गोटे भला रिटर्न दोचु, किंतु आमर किसी इज्जत नहीं. The first thing that happened was we were treated as essential service. Trust me, it was a matter of pride on the first day when I put that sticker on my car in that scared Mumbai and drive out with a lot of pride to office. We were allowed to do that, officially allowed to do that by the sovereign of this country. It was a huge thing that happened for us. The second thing was to ensure that people got back that money without the physical presence. ଯିଏ ଯାହା ବି କହିବ, ଯିଏ ଯେତେ ଟେକ୍ନୋଲୋଜି ଜାଣିଥିଲା, ସେ within a week realize କଲା ସେ କିଛି ଜାଣିନି. And COVID is the chief technology officer of the world. It is what has changed everything. आगुर गोटे कथा था बिफोर क्राइस्ट आफ्टर क्राइस्ट. नाउ इट इज बिफोर कोविड आफ्टर कोविड, राइट? दिस इज हाउ द वर्ल्ड हैज बीन इम्पैक्टेड. बट व्हेन यू शट अ हाउस फॉर से 2 वर्ष आप निज घर बंद कर दिंतु, 2 वर्ष पर जो खोलिए ना मेंटेनेंस टिके लगे बेसी. सिमिलर इज द सिचुएशन. जस्ट टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, we've shut down the manufacturing, everything of the country for 2 years. Not only of the country but of the world. गोटे गाड़ी पाइबा को आज 8 मास लगुच because of a chip problem. Who knew that the chip was more important than the engine of a car? Unbelievable, no? So when we are standing today and we've gone through a nearly life threat situation, gote lokor dita thai. Sorry, I'll just take 1 more minute. Gote lokor life re gote need thai, gote want thai. Normally ଯେତେବେଳେ ଟିକେ ପଇସା अर्न କରନ୍ତି ଲୋକମାନେ ଟିକେ want ଆଡ଼କୁ ଯାଆନ୍ତି thinking it's a need. But in this pandemic what happened, we were not able to spend anything on the want category. Hence need ରେ ହିଁ ରହିକି ଲାଇଫ୍ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଠିକ୍ ଚାଲିଲା ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଲାଇଫ୍ ଥ୍ରେଟ୍ ଆଡ଼କୁ ଆସିଲା, ଇନଭେଷ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟସ୍ ବଢ଼ିଗଲା. So ଆମ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ପାଇଁ it has been a boon. Our industry has probably tripled in these 2 years. But what has happened now is also the need for healthcare. So simultaneously health insurance has also increased, the need for hospitals has increased, so infrastructurally a lot has happened. But to answer your question on economy, you shut it down for 2 years. So the impact will just start, it hasn't started. And that we will see unfolding, and it will be pretty long in what you say. If you just hear the RBI governor has said he will ease liquidity over a period of time.
Right.
So the impact is here to stay. It could take years to come back to normal, is my personal opinion.
Fine. I'll take this to Mr. Rakesh Patnaik, who is the CEO of Infracorp. So I would like to know some international perspective to this crisis, because you have been based in Dubai and you have been seeing the Indian economy here. And no matter what government might claim that they have done so much for during the pandemic, the fact remains that we have lost almost 50 lakh people in the pandemic. So when you see from the international perspective, how would you rate how India performed or combated this pandemic, and how efficient was the government? Because many of the panelists, might not be able to give their perspective because you being an independent voice, you might. So I'm expecting an honest answer from you. How was the government performing during the pandemic, if at all you can answer?
I'll give an honest opinion for sure, but thank you very much, Sambad Group, for having me on the panel of esteemed experts in their respective fields. And I'm excited for another reason also. I'm sitting next to the panelist who's actually my classmate from school. So at some stage, Swaroop and I shared a bench when we sat on the class. Today we share the same dais and forum. So that's very nice for me as well, and to meet every panelist. So I'm a local person. I'm based in Dubai and Bahrain. So I'll probably get in the international flavor into the discussion. Now, obviously the environments are different, and you'll appreciate how it is in this country, the size, the length, the breadth, the population, the services, and the efforts taken by the administration to meet the pandemic needs. Now, obviously in other environments, those environments are different, those challenges are different, and they were dealt with in a different way. So I'll give an example of where I am based in the Middle East. When this crisis started, obviously there was no answer to the end and what is the process and how do we deal with it. But there came a day when there was a vaccine announced, and then there were programs. I mean, those environments could complete the vaccination drive in a record time. A couple of reasons for that. The way the system is, the population, and then the drive to get vaccination, also acceptance of people to get themselves vaccinated. Now, obviously, if I compare that to India, it's a little different. But again, the success rate has been very good. Today, if you look at the whole environment, when I came in today, perhaps I was the only one wearing a mask. So I said, so it has taken its own positives. Population is again vaccinated out here. But I must say, where we are based in an environment such as Bahrain or Dubai, in an office environment or the bank where I work in, we have about 30 nationalities who work in the same environment. So when this pandemic first came in, the personal impact was very high for a number of people. So somebody's wife was in South America, he was in Bahrain, she got stuck in one part of the world, he got stuck in another part of the world. I was in Bahrain, my family was in Dubai, I couldn't see them for initial 4 or 5 months because the airport just shut down. Now, obviously, we are way ahead in our sort of battle with this pandemic. Life is back to quite a new normal.
I'll just take the last question from Mr. Rakesh Patnaik. Being an expert in this infrastructure sector, what do you see the road ahead? Because during the pandemic, the supply chain, the raw materials, they had all dried up. How you see the road ahead now?
Okay, sure. So, couple of examples that come to mind. So, as an international investor into real estate, when we saw the pandemic initially, the numbers were scary. So, if you see work from home, so what does it mean? That if you have office space for 100 people and you are occupying, say, a rule of thumb, 100 square feet per person. Let's say that rule of thumb applies to standard office. So 100 people times 100 square feet, you are renting out a 10,000 square feet office space. Now, if you are having work from home for most of your people, and then later on when the pandemic gets better and then you are able to sort of partially work from home, partially from office, you may say, do I need 10,000 square feet of space or do I reduce it to 5,000? But then look at how the entire analysis has come around in a 2-year time frame. The way people were seated in offices prior to the pandemic and post-pandemic is different. If you had benchmarked at that point in time 100 square feet per person, today you have to seat people differently. A, by regulation. B, as a requirement of what's going around, you create more office space or more open space, etc. So ultimately your space requirement remains the same. Sometimes the big investors in the world who owned commercial offices were concerned, what happens to our asset in the next 12 to 24 months' time? Would we have occupancies which are low? There'll be a lot of space left out which will not be earning rent for us, so it's perhaps not a good business to be in. Let's sell off these office spaces. Pandemic, let's say 2 years down the line, if you look at demand for office space is actually increasing. Now, if you come back to the residential side, the way people lived in apartments or villas earlier is different today because today you require more open space. Today, as per planning, when you look at any asset, of course, we have an industry expert here. I'm just saying what I have from my experience, but I'm sure you can add in here. Good to see you here, sir. So if you look at residential assets today, They are again designing it differently. More open space, more common space, more balcony space, because you never know what's going to come next. So those are some of the ways in which the industry is recreating itself to ensure that they address the next 5 to 10 years in a manner which will be different from what they did earlier.
Well, so we have to wind up this discussion, but thank you all these esteemed panelists who have joined us, and had it not been these business leaders, our market situation would have been much, much worse than what it is today. They have been unsung heroes who have sailed us through these difficult times, and they certainly need a loud applause.
Thank you very, very much. I would request all the gentlemen to please be on stage. I would request Mr. Somya sir to please come up on stage to felicitate our heroes on the stage. So I would request Mr. Somaranjan Patnaik sir, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, once again for Mr. Patnaik on the stage. Can we have the mementos, please? Thank you very, very much, gentlemen, for taking some time out for us. It's an honor, absolute honor to have you here. Thank you so very much. It's just a token of appreciation of your time that you have spared for us. Thank you very, very much.